Otome games based on anime or light novel IPs are rather uncommon in Japan, doubly so with how many titles have never gotten a Western release due to all the licensing difficulties involved. But when Idea Factory International announced the release of the Otome game based on the My Next Life as a Villainess light novel series, I was surprised, being the first licensed Otome game to hit the Western market. But is it a worthy title or just a love letter? Before we get into the review, this contains rather minor spoilers from the prologue and chapter 1.
あら、それをおっしゃるなら、先にカタリナ様とソフィア様の話に割って入ったジオルド様の。
In My Next Life as a Villainess, all routes lead to doom, Pirates of the Disturbance, which I'm just going to abbreviate to Pirates of the Disturbance, you play as the protagonist of the series, Catarina. After a flu affected her mother and father, she was tasked to attend the social party that would be held on the maiden voyage of the Vinculum, a luxurious cruise ship built as a collaboration between two kingdoms, Quid and Sorcier. However, Catarina is not alone on this trip. In fact, the entire cast of the anime is here in full form, all with their own reasons to board the ship, and so begins their one-week voyage. If you've perhaps never read or watched the original My Next Life as a Villainess series, the game sort of tries to explain the events to you in the form of flashbacks that take place across the common route. However, some of these feel like very rushed explanations, as the narrative frantically tries to disconnect itself from the series' main timeline. In fact, the first thing you'll ever see upon hitting New Game is a disclaimer saying that the story and narrative of this game is an alternative timeline and has no connection to the anime or the light novels. There are 6 routes in total in Pirates of the Disturbance, with the initial 4 being reserved for the cast of the anime: Nicole, Gerardo, Alan, and Keith. The 2 original characters of this game, Silva and Rosie, also have routes of their own, but you must clear any of the initial 4 in order to play their routes. Personally, the romance in the routes felt rather predictable to a certain degree, and part of that I felt was mostly due to how some of the side characters tend to behave. It almost felt like their only purpose, if they had any, was just to be there to push Catarina into falling in love with someone, with the events that occur being rather predictable at times. In fact, my favorite routes ended up being the 2 new original characters, simply because their routes brought something completely new and fresh to the table, especially considering that they have an interesting backstory that can only be explored through the game. Still, the image cutscenes have a really nice art style, and they look especially stunning on an OLED screen. The character sprites are also rather expressive, and the voice acting, including Catarina's own voice, are really well done and express the scenario well.
何ですか? よくぞ聞いてくれました。浮き輪や水風船のような遊び道具があったので借りてきたんです。
Don't get me wrong, the roots of the main cast of the series, such as Alan and Nicole, had well-executed plotlines. Still, when you consider how Catarina already has a pre-established relationship with all 4 of them, the story and its romance will sometimes fail to wow you, simply because of the established relationships that you will be introduced to in the first chapters. Throughout each route, some of the character dialogue will trigger a memory scenario, signaled by a book icon in the top left. These can be viewed later from the title screen's special menu or by tapping the book icon in handheld mode, and offer some additional insight into certain events from the game. Unfortunately, these are just text-based scenarios with some voice acting, which disappointed me when I went to check them out, as I would have at least wanted a scene with the character sprites. Being a licensed IP game, I had high expectations for the translation, especially with how the Next Life as a Villainess series is known for its comedic banter. Unfortunately, there are many times when the text contains awkward grammatical tenses and odd spacing. Furthermore, some chapter names have such a direct-sounding translation that they don't make much sense. It's definitely not egregious enough to make you stop playing, but I do wish they'd have done a bit more editing or done some language quality assurance to the script. Pirates of the Disturbance's features also don't really stand out from the crowd, with the lack of elements such as a flowchart or maybe a dictionary to help you get accustomed to some of the terminology utilized in the My Next Life as a Villainess series. The prologue is also unskippable from your second playthrough and onwards. It just felt like a lot of missed opportunities on what they could have done with these characters, given that they wanted to, once again, disconnect the events of the game with the light novel or anime. My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom, Pirates of the Disturbance serves as a delightful homage to series fans. However, it falls short as an otome game. Despite its attempts to distance itself from the main series, its narrative occasionally feels predictable. The only saving grace lies in the brand new characters with their distinctive backstories and traits. Though the translation quality falters, if you're eager to witness more of Catarina's humorous escapades, you can still enjoy the game and its comedic romance. Noisy Pixel is giving My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom, Pirates of the Disturbance Disturbance a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our Patreon subscribers for helping keep our independent operation going. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers working hard to give you the latest news, previews, reviews, and more. Go to patreon.com/noisypixel for details on how you can help, and like, comment, and subscribe to keep up with our future content.
Noisy Pixel.